Hi everyone, welcome to the new episode of Yotewo podcast. And today we have our new guest, Sukonnik. Sean, thanks so much for coming. A long time I haven't seen you, so good to catch up and have a chat.
Yeah. Well, mate, thanks for having me here.
Cool. Great. I think, let's talk about, sort of a few things today. I think let's start maybe with your venture career. So, so you started with Lunar Ventures, then DVC, then Thunder.vc. Yeah, can you tell a bit more about sort of, what drew you into this whole field of venture finance?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a very simple story. So, I grew up in Eastern Europe, very much middle of nowhere. We don't really do startups. We are known for tinned fish. Also, my city was the city that invented the Pringles can. Okay. Not the chips, just the can. Okay. So, but that's where the innovation ended. Okay. And then when I was 16, I saw a video in Russian, like it was a tour of Silicon Valley. You definitely saw it as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I saw it, and it was the first time I ever, learned of venture capital as a field. And I was like, oh, cool. So you can have your entire job being investing in startups. So essentially give money to smart people, question mark, feel good about yourself. And that's kind of how I got in.
Nice, amazing. How did you land the first job, like the first part of it?
Oh, that was extremely silly. Twitter. So when I came here, I very quickly realized that suddenly I love people and seeing people, which is not exactly what Eastern Europeans are known for, but it turns out we just don't like each other. I started going to events, and one of them, some crypto bro, I've never seen him before or after, said, Sean, you're trying to get into VC, you don't have Twitter, like what's going on? So, I approach Twitter the same way I would approach any like other hobby or learning or whatever, which is essentially, I was doing Twitter for 40 minutes a day, every day for a year, got like to 6,000 followers. My claim to fame is that Jason Calacanis follows me. And very early on, I posted a meme on some like deep tech topic, like in the comments. And the GP of a venture capital fund liked it from a fund account. And I immediately emailed him. I was like, hey, dude, you need an intern maybe. He was like, actually, we thought about hiring one. So let me interview you first, and then go for the others. And then four rounds of interview in, I got it.
Nice. That's an amazing stuff. Cool. The next one I have is also, we just found out you're an LP at Outward. So can you tell me a bit more about about that in general?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always been a dream to an extent to be able to invest your own capital as much as you can. And, it's not that I'm bursting with money. But got very lucky. And the boss at my previous company introduced me to GP of Outward, who at that time, deployed the first fund very successfully. They were looking to close their second. I checked out where their offices were. They were a block away from my office, so we went out for a coffee. Very easy chat, got lucky with me like legally being a sophisticated investor. And very easily got in. It always felt like something I want to try as early as I can, so jumped in. I'm the youngest investor.
Nice, that's amazing. What is the sort of the seed, the stage they invest?
So they do fintech and fintech adjacent stuff. So their logic is, investing in pure finance is, reasonably normal but boring. They invest in things surrounding the finance sector, that like, finance and healthcare, finance and legal and whatever, automation, RPU, and all sorts of stuff. And as far as rounds, they do pre-seed, seed, they do a decent Series A once in a while.
Okay, interesting, nice. Now, also in between VCs, you've been a co-founder of Malevich AI. So, can you share this bit of your journey? Like, how was your experience of being a founder?
Oh, yeah, of course. Funnily enough, never thought that I would be a founder. It never really, allured to me. I felt like it's too many eggs in one basket. A friend of mine, Zach, pitched a startup to me back when I was in my first year, when I was at Lunar, and we said no. We said, it's not going to work. And he was bickering about, why. So at some point, I just gave up, and I gave him a list of 20 reasons why, which was like a very extensive list. He came to me a year later on the dot and said, hey, I fixed everything that you mentioned and also made it a bit better. You want to take a look again? At that time, I was at a different fund, so it wasn't within our thesis, but I said, hey, I absolutely love what you're doing. It looks like magic. Do you mind if I jump in and we work together? And that's how I became one of the co-founders.
Nice, amazing. And how was the whole journey of being a co-founder in general? Like, what was your main sort of,
It was fun. Funnily enough, it wasn't my main job at the time. So it was my second year. So I was in my second year of uni.
Okay.
I was a venture capital analyst at DVC at the time.
Yeah.
And their scout in Europe. And I was a co-founder of a startup at the same time.
Okay.
It was a lot. I mean, ADHD can get you that far. But at some point, it just becomes too much. And I mean, I loved it. Some parts of the process less than others, but generally it was quite nice. I think that's when I realized that I like selling and I like kind of the front office side of things.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, the fact that I was in venture for a couple of years definitely helped with raising our first round. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. That's amazing. Also, the question on that, what you just mentioned is, if essentially if you face a rejection from the VC, do you think it's better to sort of adjust what you're doing based on their feedback, or do you think it's better to go and look for other VC?
Look, it's kind of difficult to answer because first off, many VCs just won't give you a reason. They're just gonna say, no, it's not within our thesis. We are not convinced enough. Because unfortunately, like the worst thing in the job of venture capitalist is the fact that most of what you do is looking for a quick no.
Yeah.
Because it differs a lot case by case.
Yeah.
But in my previous fund, I think we had around 700 to 800 startups that we looked at like in depth per one investment. So you want to find the reason not to invest.
Okay.
And you need to understand that as a founder at all times. Like VCs don't have anything against you exactly. They're not your enemies. You have the same shared interest, at least for some part of the road.
Yeah.
So if they say no, most often it just means that there is a factor that doesn't work for them. It's not exactly something that's wrong with you. It's something that's wrong with you and them combining. But also, if you can get a good, decent answer from a VC on what's wrong, and if you see the same kind of type of answers accumulating, I would think.
Cool. Amazing. Great. Then, essentially, now having experience as both investor and the founder side, what is the key lesson that you personally learned from sort of where you belong more, you think?
Oh, I think that, realistically, neither. So operator side, probably. So working under founders kind of as front office, sales, ops people. Okay. Because, I feel like being a founder, first off, too many eggs in one basket for me. Second is just a lot of... it very quickly becomes a managing job instead of like an individual contributor job. And I feel like
100%.
I am more comfortable just doing stuff by myself and like collaborating with different departments, but ultimately being by myself.
Yeah.
Or like, with a few people in my team. But, if I had to choose between the two, it would be investor because, you can kind of dip your fingers in more pies, which I always find more fun.
Yeah, 100%. Amazing, cool. And then also, with your experience, what are some of the red flags? Because it's interesting because all the funds that you worked with where they had different theses and stages and stuff. With your experience, what are some of the red flags that you've seen founders right away when they, just come to you as a, individual investor or as a part of the fund? Sort of, what are some of them?
So, my favorite, but that's my giant pet peeve, and I tell that to everybody, is the way they approach competition. So you've definitely seen on pitch decks, there's always a competition slide. It always looks very similar. It's like it's a map. And every time I see the same thing, it's either 4 quadrants, and then there's one quadrant which is obviously the good one, and you are the only company there, or it's a market map with one quadrant, and you are just once again obviously better. And when you ask a company which works in whatever, let's say, future of computing, like, hey, why are you better than IBM on your own graph? They're like, oh, they don't have vision, they are too slow. And I'm like, and also they spent a budget of a small European nation on R&D every year. Like, guys, let's be real. So I think this is a big part of it. And also, I think that understanding how founders delegate things, especially once like late seed, early Series A comes, because you can run founder-led sales and hiring and whatnot for so long. I've seen many startups where founder has raised Series A and they're still hiring every single person, which, don't get me wrong, I respect a lot. But in certain companies, it just takes a giant toll on your calendar.
Cool. The next question I have is, after working with a number of funds, what is you think one thing that people just generally misunderstand about venture finance? Maybe founders, maybe just people in general,
So there are several things, to be honest, but I think the big one is it's a very annoying thing that all the VCs say, but it's still there. On average, a venture investment lasts longer than a marriage. Also you can't really get divorced to a certain extent. And I feel that it's very important to understand that both when choosing your investor and when working with them kind of post factum, right? So back in my time in DVC, that's why they got in the news a couple of days ago. They are extremely close with their limited partners. The limited partners are a ton of help for their portfolio startups. Like one of the most active investors in the funds, he's a venture partner there, was working for a big tech firm. And after we closed our investment in Perplexity, the day after, he said, okay, guys, thank you. I'm leaving. I'm joining Perplexity because I've seen them inside out. I know how cool they are. I'm convinced. Right. So I think that getting the most from your investment, from your investor, is critical. That's something founders don't do that often because, money is nice, but money gets you that far. Smart money and connections and network and expertise is what gets you going. And there are funds which are fantastically positioned to do exactly that, right? There's Balder, who has the giant data science team. There is kind of CVCs, which was like a topic of my bachelor thesis, right? And how they support you. And like, obviously there's way more to get. And I feel like a lot of, startups just say, hey, cool, we got money. We are never talking to you again unless it's quarterly review and you want to annoy us about numbers. So
interesting. 100%. I agree. Actually, on the DVC, they recently announced the thing that they fired the employees and replaced with the AI workers and stuff, AI analysts. So that relates to the next question: what trends do you see in the investment market happening at the moment?
So, funnily enough, I am the analyst. I was the last ever analyst they hired.
Really?
Yep, it was me. I worked with them for half a year. And then I worked alongside my very good friend Tony, who actually is moving to London sometime soon. And a big part of what he was doing and a part of what I was doing is no-code automation. So Lovable did not exist back then. So it was everything was built on Airtable. And to this day, I'm certain Airtable is the most underused piece of software in the world because people, for whatever reason, love Excel. And essentially, for some time, don't quote me on that now because it's been 2 years ago, the entire fund ran on Airtable, and it was fantastic. Like, there's so many ways to make your job as an investor faster, more streamlined. At some point, we automated everything enough that I stopped being needed, which is completely understandable. It's where we are going. I think that a big trend in investments is right now is kind of what's called data-centric investments, right? There's Quantum Light of Nick Staronsky, which tries doing that. There's once again Balder, who has a giant data science team. There are a few others who are trying to use like numbers and data science to make as many decisions as they can. My problem with that, being like, I can't really say I'm old school, I'm 23 since this week, but my problem as like an annoying person who came in before that is that I feel that especially early on, pre-seed, seed, early Series A, there aren't enough numbers. Like you can make assumptions, but it's like, if you take IB as analogy, like you can make a sensitivity table, but your sensitivity table like makes your offer like 5x or 0.5x, and here's the same thing, right? You never know what assumptions do you have to make? You have to make optimal scenario, best scenario, worst scenario, and I've been doing that for years, and it's very annoying because there's just not enough data. I would just contest that early stage investment is always about people. So stop trying to measure people unless you have a way to measure people. Just chill.
Do you think it's actually something that will come up on the way, like the way to actually measure like early stage like investability of the founder itself?
Definitely. It's gonna happen. I know a few guys who are building that. There is a fantastic company out in Cambridge. I feel very bad because I've met with the founder like a month ago. But they're essentially building a facial recognition analytics software for calls. The same way as your like Phantom or Granola jump on calls. They also jump on calls, but they analyze the way founders behave during calls, and then they kind of map it against what they expect, which
crazy.
Is not everything, but it is a data point.
Of course. 100%.
Yeah, which is like one place where we don't have data yet.
Interesting. Cool.
So something is gonna happen.
Something's gonna happen. Nice. Cool. Also, you write a lot about deep tech in Why Do I Care blog about energy, computer vision, biotech, robotics. There are 3 topics that I want to dive deeper into further on, but just maybe share what generally draws your attention to deep tech and that field.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the practical side, the reason I started Why Do I Care is that when I joined Lunar,
Yep.
I was 18. I was a bachelor's economics student, and I was the only person who doesn't have a PhD.
Okay.
Sorry, there's been another person who doesn't have
Yeah.
PhD, Alberto, but he's Forbes 30 under 30. So it's me,
Yeah.
30 U30 that's not in jail,
Yeah.
and a bunch of PhDs, including like the youngest PhD in German history. Scary guy. He managed to take a year off. He's still the youngest. And the reason I started writing is because I realized that sometimes there are things that I don't understand. At that job, there sometimes are things that I do understand.
Yeah.
Right. So I realized that I need to focus and have a reason to go and figure stuff out.
Okay.
And I cared a lot about that because, well, first off, that's my job. I can
Yeah.
get fired. But also because it felt like there's a lot of giant concepts that I just don't get.
Yeah.
And it was annoying me a great deal that I don't understand.
Okay.
A very simple things that I hear on a day-to-day basis. So I started writing. And I think over time, it transitioned more from, hey, here's kind of a vague concept and I'm trying to make sense of it, to, hey, I've read 20 articles on a topic. I think I have a general feel on the overlying of what's going on. Okay. Let's go figure it out, right? And I've been reading like a lot of sci-fi growing up, in Russian, oddly enough, which is not really a popular genre. And I realized that I thought that by the time I grew up, a lot of sci-fi things are going to happen. Okay. I grew up, they didn't happen. I thought, okay, maybe that's because I'm in Latvia. You know, we don't really invent things often, as we covered. So I will move to London, the biggest city in Europe, kind of bar Istanbul, and things are going to happen there. I moved. Sci-fi still didn't happen. Now I have to pay taxes. So that was sad. So I said, you know what? I can at least figure out what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Nice. So it was sort of a mix of learning and sort of just general, envisioning the future and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of me trying to kind of combobulate everything that I read into the same place, because I feel that, now my logic is, hey, there are several hundred people that read that on a weekly basis when I do write it. So they are expecting it. So I need to write something which forces me to learn.
Exactly.
And it's very much driven and ideated by what Peck and Dan McCormick do. They're absolutely fantastic. Peck has like the coolest blog and probably the coolest fund I know. And their thesis is, hey, the future is going to happen. You might as well go and figure out what's happening.
Yeah. Cool. That's amazing. Great. Let's dive in these three topics that I was like sort of most interested in. So the first one is about how do you envision the future with alternative energy? Like what sector of it do you see is sort of evolving in the upcoming years?
I am extremely bullish on nuclear. With that, I have a very clear understanding that nuclear takes a ton of time, way more than literally any other sector, like subsector of energy, because funnily enough, for very silly reasons, as in, Chernobyl disaster, 3 Mile Island disaster, Fukushima, right? It's all very scary, but if you look at that against the amount of average lifespan we lose yearly on other energy sources, that's essentially nothing. And that's why we halted our research for tens of years. And I think that there are a lot of very interesting advancements in the field, right? So Britain is jumping back on nuclear.
Exactly.
What I'm very giddy about is that in the United States, there has been a ton of movement. So there's this program called DOME, which is essentially a government-situated facility that allows for testing of non-hydrogen nuclear reactors. And America prohibited non-hydrogen in 1962, Energy Act, something, because it's unsafe. And now, they've been stuck on hydrogen, which is all right, but it's slow, for the past 60 years. This year has been the first ever allowed testing of non-hydrogen nuclear reactor since 60s. Fantastic company called Radiant. And there are several others that are jumping in. There is Standard Nuclear. Bill Gates' company seems to be going in that direction. So there's definitely a lot happening there. Europe side as well. We, as always, don't really know what's happening in Asia, but we know for a fact that China has been building several large-scale nuclear reactors, which is very interesting. There's always talks of like weapon grade nuclear, which does sound scary.
Yeah.
But if we are talking about non-weapon grade enriched uranium, it should be all good. It's essentially endless energy. That's something I expect a lot. It also ties in a lot with kind of material science discoveries, right? So, literally read about it yesterday that IBM and Microsoft are running independent tests on kind of how to implement AI into material science innovation. It is gonna happen at some point, very soon, probably. So yeah, it's one of those times when we just wait to go and find needle in a haystack, kind of plowing through tens of millions of potential combinations of like catalyzers and electrolytes to go and figure out something else in the energy. And that's the fun part of it. You never know when it's going to happen, but it is going to happen.
It is going to happen, yeah, 100%. Cool. You also wrote about the future of meaningful work and just generally changing approach to jobs and stuff like that. Yeah, could you share your view on that? How do you see this part evolving? Because it's quite interesting, like, as well.
I think that it's interesting because like a very big argument that I've heard, and fair enough, especially from like AI skeptics and people who are not really tied to the industry at all, is that AI was supposed to take away the boring stuff and let us do the fun stuff. Instead, AI just takes the fun stuff, right? So people use AI in writing, in art, and whatnot, and that is true. I feel like it's not the framing of that is a bit wrong because AI less so took jobs from people that wanted to have them, but more so gave jobs to people that had no real talent, if you're being honest. I use it from time to time as well. But realistically, I feel that the more we go into kind of the kind of GPT, late GPT models and kind of other stuff. Like there are several models that are now internal for Google and Microsoft that will get out at some point. We will get to a point where we can automate menial and boring stuff more and more, which will allow us to kind of think about things that matter more during our job and try things out and streamline the process, right? So a good example that I can use, I guess, is the lab work. So there has been a company in the US which has raised Periodic Labs, which has raised 300 mil recently on essentially automation of, as I said before, material science research. But the thing that they do is they have built an automated complex of labs. Well, they are building them, that essentially plow through potential research topics that can be done in material science, send it to robots. Robots perform the research, as in they move the beakers and whatnot, and then humans are left to analyze and interpret it. And it's the interpretive reasoning that matters, and that AI can't really handle right now, and probably won't anytime soon. And I think that's where we're gonna shine, and that's what ultimately is for me way more interesting. Like I respect my like lab technicians and whatnot, but realistically, most people in science want to be thinking and trying things, not performing like the physical acts. If you ask me, I have no idea, no scientist. But yeah, and the fun thing about Periodic is that you remember a while ago when Zuckerberg randomly gave $1 billion to a bunch of people. One of the few people who rejected them was one of the co-founders of Periodic Labs. Not only he rejected Zuckerberg, he was working for Meta at the time. So he left Meta to go and do Periodic Labs instead of getting $1 billion and staying in the same office.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Interesting. Would you say so? Would you say it means that pretty much more creative jobs will be sort of arising? But also on the question of being sort of more generalist or niche specialist, where do you think the market will go?
I think that it will be way more about thinking and interpreting rather than doing. Because a very important thing that we need to understand about AI, the way we are building it now, and the way general intelligence-esque companies are going to work, is that artificial intelligence ultimately just amasses a ton of data points and assumes what the best possible answer is. It doesn't have a kind of binary concept of correct and wrong.
Like
it has a weighting. And people need to, and it has weighting literally at any pixel of what it answers you. So what people need to understand, and what we need to highlight way more, is AI saying the answer is this with this % of certainty. we feel like you might have to recheck it, right? So we will not be able to rely a lot on final reasoning with 100% certainty, because there is never 100% certainty. And I'd rather a human make that mistake and everybody else double check it than AI make that mistake and everybody think, hey, that's AI, they're smart. I've talked to them about my potato recipe yesterday, so it should be good. And I think that this will be a giant part of meaningful work going forward. It's kind of understanding the results of whatever it is that manual processes, led us to, and interpreting them.
100% agreed. 100%. Another topic that I really share, my opinion with yours on that, is informational overbloat. But for the audience, can you tell me a bit more your thoughts on that vertical as well?
Yeah, so I'm probably not going to surprise anybody, but there is a ton of information around, and you see the same news topic once a quarter that human brain has never been built to encounter that much information, so we get information fatigue. 100%. But realistically, I think it's about how you manage that and how you approach it. But there is just so much stuff happening. And I think the reason why I started writing on it to begin with was when I realized that no matter how much I read and I write and I listen to podcasts and whatnot, there's still going to be so much more that I've just missed, and I will find out about the ergo factor. And that's okay. Just accepting that there's too much information around you, way more than you ever be able to, concede. Just chill about it. The way I approach it is, one of the coolest things I've built on Lovable recently, I've built essentially a knowledge graph. So I have an app which is connected to my reading network, which is where all of my RSS feeds go. I write notes on everything I read every day, because otherwise I will forget. I have ADHD, I will forget anyway. And I have this app which parses through everything that I've read and structures it. So I at least know in which fields I have a toehold of knowledge and understanding and where I can expand. And where on the other side I have a full gap. I have no idea what's going on there. I've touched on it briefly 2 years ago, but at this point, zero idea. I'd rather come back to that. And it helps a lot when you know what you don't know, right? Because there are known unknowns, and they are okay, we are good with them. And then there are unknown unknowns, and that's where kind of the information overbloat problem comes from, right? Because you know that there is something, and you don't know that.
100% agreed, 100%. Cool. Before we get to the last question, the other question I just came up with is, you also moved from Eastern Europe to London. What do you think is the reason why London has been such a magnet for, talents, investors, founders, everyone?
Man, I think it's different for everybody. For me, a big part of it is that there is just about everything that there can be in the city in London, right? I'm from Eastern Europe. Riga is a very small city. Clerkenwell has more people there than Riga. Despite Riga being giant, by the way. We are the size of 3 Parises. Which, why? And I think that coming here, a big part of it is whatever you want to be doing, there is the opportunity to do that here. There's also a ton of competition most of the time, but there is the opportunity. You can go and try. There is whatever hobby you want to pursue. There is a royal club of that, and Queen Elizabeth personally went and drank tea there in 1985, right? There is already a royal paddle society somewhere. I am certain of that. And the same way, if you want to build startups, there is an endless amount of startup hubs and accelerators and whatnot. I am a part of several ones. If you want to become a venture investor, Berlin would be a good shout, but there's no better place than London in Europe to do that. There are, once again, venture schools and venture accelerators. Grishin, the ex-CEO of Mail.ru and Grishin Robotics, is starting a venture capital accelerator right now. I am a judge in a venture school called Tiny Ventures, which is really cool. Shout out. And if you want to, go and learn how other people build startups, there are courses at universities on how to build startups. What the hell is that? Right? There is no shortage of
anything. Pretty much.
No shortage of anything. Cool things, smart people, somewhat abundant capital. It would be nice if investors were less conservative to the hold. I don't know if you've seen that, but there were news on kind of British government willing to force different investors and like large wealth managers to invest a certain very small percentage in alternative assets, which they will find a way to make it boring. But that's something, the trickle down effect is going to go to venture to some extent. And I'm here for it.
Cool. That's amazing. Cool, man. And just the last question. Could you give one piece of advice to founders that are fundraising right now?
It's okay to cry sometimes. No, I think that realistically, a big advice that I would give is every no is a data point.
Yeah.
And it's totally okay to hear a lot of no's. You will hear a lot of no's, whatever you do. Very often in venture. That's, as we mentioned before, the biggest part of your job as a venture investor is saying no. So if something doesn't work, try and rehash it a bit, try different things. Unfortunately, there is enough investors to do A/B testing. It's one of the markets where you can just say, okay, you know what? I have a list of 1,000 people. Probably 900 of them will hate me from the get-go. The other 100 we can talk. Do that, and it is a cumulative thing.
Yeah, agreed on this, 100%. Cool, man. It was an amazing chat. I'll leave all the links to your LinkedIn and all that stuff in the description. And yeah, Sean, thanks so much for coming, man.
Yeah, cheers, mate.